What's up, YouTube? Today we got an update on the 1969 Lincoln Continental. Stay tuned. Alright, so here's the little update we got going here on the Lincoln. I took this flat tire that was completely dry rotted and basically had a giant hole in it off. Put the spare on. Spare was totally flat, aired that up, and luckily it's holding air. If you watched the last video, you could see that we got the gas tank out. It also went ahead, as you can see when I zoom in here, that little hole right there in the rust, you can barely see it, that little black hole, that is a missing screw that holds the fuel line up. So there was one up there by the tank, kinda. Then there was another, like two of them on that wheel well arch there. Then there was a small cover that bolts in this general area where it curves towards the center. Went ahead and removed that cover. And then we went all down the driver edge of the vehicle, removing any of the brackets that held the brake and fuel line on together. Then there was another cover right in this general area. I removed that as well. And we got access to the fuel line from under here. That there is the power antenna. And then that hose right there is where the fuel line connected to. I got that inside, been working on that a little bit. You can kind of follow the fuel line all the way up. We got those screws out as well, but I've not removed it. And then the line goes right into the vehicle right there, up into the engine bay. So I got that fuel line off. I'm attempting to repair it or refurbish it, if you will. And I'll go ahead and show you some of that now. Show you guys what I'm working with here. So this is the fuel line as it came out of the vehicle, except this side I've been sanding down quite a bit on it. You can see some rust pitting pretty bad in it in a few spots. And there was a very, very minor amount of brown that came out on the first couple sprays. But once I pressurized it and I sprayed brake cleaner all the way through it, it was coming out very, very clean. So I don't think there's any issue with the inside. However, you can kind of see in this area some of the spots that haven't even been touched yet. Looks absolutely terrible. However, some spots over here, I mean, they shine up like damn near brand new steel. So I think what I'm going to do is take some of you guys' recommendations, and I'm going to sand this down really, really good, get it as close to bare metal as possible. And I think we might go ahead and put some POR 15 on this fuel line. I can find a new fuel line. I think it was on Summit Racing, but there's not a picture of it. And it's like 130 bucks. And they charge you an extra 20 because it's an oversized item. I don't know if you guys can tell this in the picture, but I measured it out, just a rough measurement, and I want to say that this thing is like 14 feet long, all in one piece. So I know it would be a pain in the ass to try to make this myself, and I just feel like I'm gonna buy the wrong thing. Plus, if I save a little bit of money, I'm not upset about that either. This here is the cover that goes by the back wheel that holds the fuel line in place, or it really just covers it up. It looked a little bit worse than this, but I kind of half-assed sanded it down, and that is pretty much the rust color that we're working with there. This is the cover on the front that goes over the fuel line. I've gone ahead and sanded it down and hit it with a couple coats of some black spray paint just to make it look a little bit better. So we're going to end up doing that same thing with this one as well. Also, we got the wheel well cover out, and this is what it looks like after a couple coats of paint. This is what covers up the fuel line and the power antenna up front. So this is kind of the progress that we've made so far, and what I plan to do moving forward is go ahead and get this line sanded down, put some of that Pour 15 on it. We'll go ahead and paint it with something like this so it looks like a brand new line again. We're going to call it good. Hopefully it won't leak. Another thing that makes me feel somewhat comfortable to do that is because this vehicle has a mechanical fuel pump, which means there's no pressure in this fuel line. There is in fact a vacuum in this fuel line because it sucks it into the engine from the tank. So if a leak does develop, then it's going to be barely dripping out as opposed to coming out at like 60 psi. Also, I'm going to go ahead and show a picture of what this guy looked like before I did anything to it. It was pretty nasty looking for sure. Well, unfortunately we sanded a pinhole into the fuel line, but that was likely going to happen to begin with anyway. So I'm glad that we found it early. I'm just going to end up getting a new fuel line. We're going to move on with the update, and I'll show you that in just a moment. Alright, so here we are under the engine bay, under the hood rather, and you'll notice here that something's missing. Something's disconnected from two hoses right here, and that is going to be the power steering reservoir. Let me turn on this light here. It actually bolts up into those two holes right there, kind of on the cylinder head. And then down there, if you look even closer, you'll see that there's another two lines disconnected. And those go to the fuel pump. And I'll show you what that looks like. So that's where the fuel pump mounts to the engine. And I need to clean that up quite a bit. Looks like there's some kind of little lobe of some kind that hits it. Very interesting. I didn't know if it was driven directly off the cam or how exactly that worked. It doesn't look like it's driven off the crank or the cam, to be honest. It looks like there may be some extra piece on the timing chain that actuates that, and I'm just now noticing that there's some crap in those threads on the right side, so I'm going to definitely have to resolve that issue. But while this stuff is off, I really want to clean that up as good as I possibly can down in there, especially around the gasket surface where the pump mounts to the engine, because I want to make sure that the new one has a good seal. I am going to be buying a brand new fuel pump, so I'm not too worried about that. But I am going to have to kind of refurbish the power steering reservoir because I don't think there's really a need to buy a new one of those. So I'm going to take you guys back down to the basement and show you my progress down there. Another thing of note is that we do have another one of these bad boys coming. Ordered that yesterday. May have been a while back, may already be installed by the time you watch this, but I do have a new fuel sending unit on the way, so that's good to know. We can put this gas tank back in soon, or at least the new one anyway. Alright, and as for the fuel line, you can see right there, a little pinhole in it. So unfortunately we're not going to be using that. We're just going to go ahead and order a new one. This is the fuel pump that came off of it right here, this mechanical fuel pump. Kind of works like a plunger. There's an in and an out on the bottom there. It kind of mounts on the engine like that. This part that my hand is on goes into the engine, and then fuel comes in from here, from the tank, and comes out here and goes up to the carburetor. And my God, guys, this is extremely rusty inside of there. Look inside of there. That is insane. So we needed to replace that regardless. But basically this lever over here, it's going to go up and down because of the engine. And when that happens, there's a plunger in here made of rubber, a diaphragm, and it's going to cause a vacuum right here, which will suck fuel from the tank into the pump and direct it up towards the carburetor. Then over here, we got our power steering reservoir took apart. I got it cleaned up a little bit, but it was every bit as greasy as the fuel pump. I'm still going to clean this some more, but I ran out of brake cleaner. My light just went off too because my phone's on 15%, I guess. Sorry about that, guys. But we got a little filter inside here that is replaceable. I'm going to go ahead and get one of those on order as well. And I'm going to clean this up, and I'm going to spray paint it the same color as the gas tank, that kind of brushed aluminum color. I think that would look pretty nice. It's got kind of like a stainless steel color, but it almost looks kind of, it has like a golden hint to it. So I don't know if it's some kind of alloy or what, but I think with that brushed aluminum colored bottom and a black top, I think it would look really, really nice once it's all cleaned up and put back in the vehicle. And now I'll show you what the top looks like. Had to grab another light here so you guys can see this, but got a couple coats of paint on there on the top. Turned out pretty nice. Still pretty wet, but man, I'm hyped to see what this looks like once I get it all put back together. Put a fresh filter in there. Also went ahead and I'm trying to one by one sand off these clips that hold up the fuel line and kind of coat those up a little bit. Basically everything I take off the car, I just want to do my best to put it back on in better condition than I took it off. That's the ultimate goal with this vehicle. Also, I don't think I've shown this yet, but we got the power steering reservoir totally restored. Looks really, really freaking good now. Another update here on the Lincoln. Once I get the sending unit, that area directly above the gas tank and the area right here behind it, I'm going to hit all of that with some Pour 15, I think. And then this underside, it's pretty well protected by the original underbody spray. It's come off in a couple spots, but I might just go over that again with some more of that stuff. But anywhere where I can see this, I think I'm going to do the Pour 15 on all of that, but at least in the areas around the gas tank, because I don't want to have to pull the gas tank out again. Also, over here, I guess I should start with the beginning. So, got up under here, loosened this bolt, that's your pivot bolt. And then under here, or this one here is your slotted hole. So you loosen that, and then if you need to, you can use an adjustable wrench or something, but there's a hex right here on top that you can move it. Mine just kind of fell down. Then I went ahead and took the 4 bolts out of the fan right there, out of the front of the water pump. Then there was 2 bolts at the top of the radiator that I got the fan shroud loose, and it just goes into some tabs at the bottom. They're pretty rusty. It looks like shit down there. And got the fan and fan shroud out. Then took the hose off right here. Took the lower radiator hose off and both of the trans lines off. And I still have to disconnect the upper radiator hose. Also need to come through and release the rest of these clips with a flathead screwdriver so I can get the wiring disconnected. And I got these 4 bolts out that holds this upper plate on. And that plate is pretty much what holds the radiator in. As you all can see, that radiator looks like complete shit and it's gotta go. But the main reason I'm removing it is so I can hopefully get a little better access down in here to clean up that area around the fuel pump. I'm also going to go ahead and remove the lower radiator hose as well, but this connection down here at the radiator was easier to get to, so I started with that one. And we got this all loose, as you can see. So I got to go pick up my son from school here in a sec, but once I get back, we can go ahead and get this radiator out the rest of the way. Okay, so we got the radiator out. What do you guys think? Should I replace it? Just kidding, I'm definitely fucking replacing it. Anyway, now that that's out of there, I still need to get this plate off the rest of the way. They brought a wire through there and I unplugged it, but I need to get the rest of these little clips off and I can pull this plate out. Take a look at what that looks like now, because it ain't gonna look like that long. It's gonna be nice and black, shiny black. Then I need to get my shop vac or some air and blow all this shit out or suck it out or something, because that looks terrible. And I'll probably go ahead and put some Pour 15 all up in this area too. So that's where we're at right now. Basically all I'm gonna do is finish removing this plate, and I'm gonna bring this inside, clean it up, and then another thing I want to do, you can kind of see it over there where the battery tray is. I need to get the old one unbolted. Found a new one on eBay, looks exactly like that. So I'm gonna get a new one because that one's all rusted out, and there's a giant hole over there. So I know that the proper way to fix it is to cut the old metal out and all that shit, but I'm gonna try to cut this car up as little as I possibly can. But that's kind of what it looks like on the other side, so I think I'm gonna cover that up with something and then put some JB weld over it, and then put some of that Pour 15 over the whole thing. But that's where we're at for now. Got her all rinsed off and got a very, very light first coat on there, and it already looks excellent. Very nice indeed. Man, I cannot wait till this thing is done and I can drive it. It's gonna be so freaking awesome. Man. Well, we got 3 coats on there. It's looking real nice. You can see my hand in it. Very, very nice. Got a little bit of texture to it because it did have a little bit of surface rust on it. I didn't even sand it down or anything. I just cleaned it off really, really good, wiped it on down with a rag really, really good, and smacked the paint on there, because at the end of the day, it's just a cover that goes over the radiator and the condenser, and I think that'll last quite a while. It's not really in a spot where there's a lot of water getting on it or anything like that. So, looking good, looking good. And finally, we got that new sending unit today. You can tell the old one looks terrible compared to the new one. The screen right here just broke right off into the old tank when I removed it. So we're going to be getting rid of that. We're going to go ahead and put this one in. So we got our new seal on there. I'm going to try to make sure that that stays as centered as possible. I'm going to go ahead and try to fit these in without screwing it up. There we go. I want to kind of flip it. There we go. Man, this thing just barely fits in there. And we've got our seal underneath it. And if I'm not mistaken, it's gotta go I can't remember if they were straight up or not. We'll get her in there though. Well, after a bit of pain in the ass and struggling with it, we got her in there. We got it right on the edge where it starts to kind of curve up and it doesn't want to go in any farther. You can kind of see it right here. It starts to curve up right there. So we got that in as far as we can. And you can see that the rubber gasket sticks out just a little bit all around. I tried to make sure that that was as even as possible. Also, there is a slight difference. This tube wasn't here on my original one, but the eBay ad said you can just cap it off and it'll work just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and find something to cap that with. And as far as the tank itself goes, this bad boy is ready to go back in. That's going to be the end of our update for today. I'm going to continue to keep you guys posted as I get this car in better and better condition. Hopefully it won't be more than a year or so, and I'll at least be able to drive the car. If you enjoy videos like this and you haven't subscribed yet, I would greatly appreciate that. Otherwise, go ahead and like and comment below, and I will see you next time.